Have you been looking for a Taekwondo podcast with qualified people who know what they're talking about, who help you keep up with everything going on in the Taekwondo world? Well, you found it. This is the Taekwondo Podcast. Taekwondo news, competitions and other events, training and sports science, keeping the fans, coaches, and high-performance athletes up to date with the latest news and trends on Olympic Taekwondo. Let's do this. This is the Taekwondo Podcast. And now your hosts, Coach César Valentim and Peter Nessler.
Hello and welcome to the Taekwondo Podcast. We're a podcast based out of Austria in English language for everyone out there who likes Taekwondo. In this episode, we talk with Coach Gareth Brown, Olympic coach from Team USA. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Coach César Valentim, and with me are Coach Gareth Brown and CJ Nickolas from Team USA. Hi Gareth, hi Nickolas, how are you guys?
Hey César, good, thanks.
So, for those who are listening, and I guess it's very hard to say that no one knows you, but actually not the fact everyone knows you. So, for those who might not know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Gareth?
So I'm the head coach for USA Taekwondo, currently based in Colorado Springs. Been working for the United States now for since the start of 2018. Moved out here October of 2019 and building a team, with young CJ, who's on the podcast with us as well. He's one of the initial 4 athletes that we brought into the program. Coming up for 43 years old this year and still enjoying what I do. So, that's me.
Yeah, I've known you for quite a while now, over a decade. We're the same age. I remember when you were with your club, and then we've met at, Sharm el-Sheikh for juniors, and then you moved on to GB Taekwondo. CJ, you're quite famous as well. 2021 Pan Am champion, 2021 Pan Am Games champion. Recently, I've met you in Albania winning a silver medal. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you joined the program?
Yeah, my name is CJ Nickolas. I am 20 years old. I joined the program late 2018. Started traveling back and forth from Manchester, training and competing. It was my first time going into the international scene. We moved out to Colorado in, I want to say, mid-2019 as well. And it's just been competing and training since then, getting into the professional athlete mind state, I'm a minus 80 kilogram senior athlete, and I'm currently gunning to try to get that top 6 spot so I can qualify for the Olympics without the whoop-de-wah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen you had a very successful career. You've been a national team since you were a cadet. You had some good results in juniors, medals at the Worlds. I'm happy to see you in the academy in Colorado. I will go back to you, Gareth, because you do come from Great Britain, and the systems in Great Britain and US are a little bit different. What was the biggest challenge you faced when you moved over there?
Setting up a program was the first thing, because the program was non-existent when I came over here. It was setting it up from scratch, trying to work with our CEO Steve McNally and the high performance director May Spence to paint them a picture of what a high performance Taekwondo program looks like and how it works and runs. They've both got an extensive amount of expertise in other fields, and May herself was a competitor. But as we know, the game's moved on. We're working in much more of a modern Taekwondo climate now. Teams are more professional around the world. And so at the start, it was just trying to educate and work with them on what we needed, the support services we needed, the fact that we needed the athletes to live here, move, and the United States is huge. And I did not fully comprehend how big it was when I first came over here, And within that, one of the big challenges was in England, in Manchester, it was easier to run a full-time program because the athletes could still get access to go and see their families. It's, you know, you could live in Manchester and you could, excuse me, you could drive for 2 hours to go to Wales and go and see your family, or you could drive for 3 hours and you'd be at the bottom of the country. But you can't do that in the United States. So one of the first barriers was, how do we enable these young athletes to still get that time they need away from the program to go and see their family and that support network that they need from their family, whilst working with us, and we're pushing them extensively physically and psychologically within training. So that was a big barrier for us. Building a relationship with the Olympic Training Center, because Taekwondo is not a mainstream sport in the United States, whereas in Great Britain, it got a lot of coverage, a lot of media coverage, was very well known. It was government funded. So building a relationship with the Olympic Training Center was key. So we were able to get a group of our priority athletes support through their services. And then the last big one for me was moving my family over here and trying to get my family into the way of life, American style, you know.
Yeah, that's something that it's a big difference. You had in this UK system a huge financial support with the lottery and all of course, the public funds available. Those are not available in where you are right now in Colorado. Yet you managed to bring an Olympic gold in such a short time. Can you tell us a little bit how you did it?
Well, I mean, me and Paul have a very set coaching process, and a structure that we work to within our training and how we train athletes, the methods that we use to train them, the phasing. The phasing isn't set because obviously it changes due to the competition calendar and the way that World Taekwondo work, and being hit by a pandemic, which was a big impact. But yeah, we've got a very set process in what we look for within athletes. We set up some talent identification to seek out talented athletes. The first place I went to was the Junior World Championships in 2018, where I saw CJ win his silver medal. And he was clearly, it caught my eye. I'm huge talent, you know, just see the way he was kicking, the speed, how dynamic he was. Anastasia, obviously, winning her gold medal there, where CJ won his silver. And she qualified for the Youth Olympic Games. And there were some others in there. There was Kalfani Harris, Melvi Alvarez was there, and Faith Dillon was there. And so there was quite a few athletes there that caught our eye at the time. Elena, Viana. So there's quite a few athletes that caught our eye at the time. But we were unable to access all of them quickly due to just setting up a program and the amount of funds that we had access to. Whereas in Great Britain, you know, you would have been able to go, all three of those world medalists, you'd have brought them straight in to Manchester. And the others who didn't win the medals, but maybe lost at those competitions to the gold medalists in earlier rounds, but were close, the performances were close, you know, they were close to beating them, you would have brought them in. But we weren't able to do that. So you have to work with them from distance, build a relationship with them and the parents. And it was very similar to working at a school level, at a club level, you know, how I used to do back before I started working for GB Taekwondo. You have to build a relationship with the parents, and then build a relationship with the athlete, and try and get the parents to financially fund them, to bring them as often as they can over to you in Colorado or wherever you're based. And then through that process, over a period of time, once you see them at talent identification camps, or you invite them in to come training, then you make an informed decision through their training and through competitions whether you want to bring them in full time and invest and see if it's something feasible for them to do, you know. So yeah, that's what we've done this time with these guys, and we've got CJ.
Well, I've met some of your athletes before you ever been to US, and so I know a little bit the development of Anastasia and Elena Viana. CJ, I've met you just a month ago. It's the first time I'm actually having a conversation with you. Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective how it is to get into this pipeline, how it was before, and how the program changed your life?
Yeah, before 2018, when all of this started happening, it was almost a laughable thing to think about a resident athlete program being like inducted. It was a dream that wasn't really feasible. No one really thought it was going to happen. So then once it did happen and there was an opportunity for it, and it seems like a trend amongst the athletes. It's as soon as the opportunity opens itself to you, you have to jump on it as soon as it comes, because it's kind of fleeting, you know? So as soon as I got the opportunity to go out to Manchester, I had to shift my whole life around. I was in high school at the time. And when I first got the call that I was going to go out and train out in Manchester, it was at the start of my senior year, so my last year of high school. So then I had to change from public school, where I was going to school every day, to online school, which I had never done, and then work with, you know, the changing times and stuff like that, going back and forth from Europe and stuff like that. So it was a little rough at first, trying to improve my game, learn the new game that we weren't used to, and then go home, apply that, and then keep going back and forth. So then once we could get a program set out here in Colorado where it's full-time and we're here all the time, it made it a lot easier to progress, I guess. There wasn't a lot of lost time in between where there's like weeks where Gareth and Paul wouldn't see us, or like we'd go to training camps, or training camps in competitions for like a 10-week block, and then we'd go home for 4 weeks, and then we'd come back, and there's just that there was a little bit of a disconnect, you know. I'm from California, so from California to Colorado, it's about a 2-hour flight, but it's a 19-hour drive that I haven't been able to take yet. I want to one day, but I haven't been able to take it. But that was a really big thing. I had to disconnect from like my family life, being able to just see my family. All of my family is basically based in California, and it was pretty rough at first to just like completely disconnect from them, even though it's only a 2-hour flight. So you can imagine when people are coming from Florida or from New York or anything like that, where there's 4-hour flight difference, that it's like that little bit is it's a sacrifice that was it was kind of heavy, I guess. But as time has gone on, I've gotten used to it, you know, living by myself. And
well, you are in Colorado, so you're pretty much in the middle of the Olympic movement in US. Yeah, you have all the other athletes. Yeah. So wherever you go for a walk, you'll find someone that is an Olympian. So it's definitely a good motivation. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
This podcast is supported by Hawken Dynamics. Hawken Dynamics believes that technology is most useful when it stays out of your way. That's why Hawken developed the world's first wireless force plate system with extreme usability. It is the quickest, easiest to use, and most robust solution on the market. It is trusted by all sports organizations, large and small, as well as tactical, military, and rehabilitation environments around the globe. It's force testing in the palm of your hand. Here at Taekwondo Center, we use Hawken Dynamics to test and monitor our team. The cloud-based platform allows us to access data and publish a variety of reports on the go. My favorites are trend reports and, of course, weight reports, where I can monitor different metrics to view progress and identify performance indicators, or to compare weights to a baseline data range. I use it on a daily basis to identify readiness. A simple jumping test takes me less than a minute to assess the entire team. Having my own Hawken Dynamics force plates allows me to test reactive strengths, maximum strengths, rate of force development, asymmetry, and so much more. The real-time feedback on the app is useful not only for testing, but as a training tool, making it more accurate and at the same time more engaging for the athletes. If you are interested in learning more about Hawken Dynamics or getting your own, the team can be reached at info@hawkendynamics.com or on Instagram or Twitter @HawkenDynamics. When talking about Taekwondo training, we need to talk about Athlete Analyzer. Athlete Analyzer is the first Taekwondo-specific athlete monitoring system. It is used by both national teams, regional squads, and small clubs to maximize performance, prevent injuries, and communicate with both athletes and trainer teams. Athlete Analyzer is a cloud-based system with a friendly smartphone app. You can plan and monitor every aspect of your training, even when you are not in the gym with your team. The easy-to-use video analysis tool is not like anything you've seen. It helps you understand your athletes and even their opponents, making this app the only tool you need to manage your team. Before I used Athlete Analyzer, I spent an absurd amount of time in front of the computer, creating spreadsheets and using half a dozen software solutions. I have athletes in my center, but also abroad, and with Athlete Analyzer, it's much easier to communicate, plan, and monitor their development. Now that I have extra time, I can focus on what matters, training my athletes, and it still leaves me some room to do other stuff, like this Taekwondo podcast. Athlete Analyzer offers you a 2 weeks free trial. Visit them at athleteanalyzer.com to sign up, or click on the link in the episode's description. To get the most of your free trial, I recommend you first book a free personal demonstration with Nickolas. It will give you a great insight of what Athlete Analyzer has to offer you and your team. It is well worth the time.
You're listening to the Taekwondo Podcast. Now back to your hosts, Coach César Valentim and Peter Nessler.
So welcome back. Here we are talking with Gareth Brown and CJ Nickolas. Gareth, we've listened a little bit about your experience and what CJ's program, the integration in the program and all the academy you're doing over there. We talked a lot about changing in the environment, but also our sport is changing. There are new rules that make the game can become a little different or slightly different in the second semester. What are your thoughts on these changes?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, right? Hot topic right now. So I'm actually on the WT Technical Committee currently for the chair for the coaches committee. We've had numerous meetings about the rules and how it will look and how it will work. And I've had numerous conversations with Mr. Songchul Kim, and it's going to be very much the way it's always been within Taekwondo, I think. Whereas you'll have some strong referees that will have a very set way of interpreting each rule. There's areas of grey in there, but there's always going to be areas of grey. It's sport. But I think the clinch situation within the game now is going to go on for, I think, somewhere in the region. It could be anything from 3 to 5 seconds now, depending on if there's action in the clinch or not. But what the referees are asking for is for the athletes to break the clinch themselves, as opposed to the referee having to come in and stop the clinch. So I think we'll see more action in the clinch and on the way out of the clinch. And then we'll have to see how the cancel rule is interpreted within the game by the referees. My understanding is that they won't want to see, it's still written in there, no impeding kicks and no blocking with your knee. That's still written in the rules as it was. I think they may be a little bit more strict with cancelling with your leg, with a bent leg. So again, we will see how that's interpreted, but that's my understanding of it. I like the system of the winning the rounds. I think that's going to add pressure to the athletes, which they're going to need to get used to and learn to perform under. And the pressure is going to be more within the game because there's more pressure to win the round. So we'll see more of a winning and losing scenario throughout the course of the 3 rounds, if it goes to 3 rounds. So I like that. They've obviously tried to put more emphasis on spinning techniques by
making a decision criteria, yeah?
Yeah, it's in the criteria, that's right, to win. So if there's a tied round and a drawn round or a tied amount of points, cumulative points, and they both, one of them scores a spin or one scored 2 spins and one scores 1, whoever scores the most amount of spins gets the superiority to win the game. And then I believe it goes to Gamjams, I think. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, then it goes back to the normal Wisagiro. But we're talking about when, in terms of training, the fact that it's now a lot of the fighting to the head in the clinch are out. That the rounds you have to consider the point gaps per round and a limited number of deductions you can get per round will make the games a lot more intense. Probably the first round a little more exciting instead of the third round. And you will have, of course, as you mentioned, a lot of strength training to be done in terms of isometric to keep the leg up straight as much as possible instead of a bended leg. Do you think the adaptation from the athletes is going to be as fast as it was to the previous rules?
From the athletes, yeah, I think the athletes will adapt quick. I'm sure the athletes will. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a combat sport. And if your instinct is to go in there and fight and score points, you've got a better chance of winning than you have if your instinct is not to go in there and fight. So I think from an athlete's perspective, yeah, they'll adapt quick. I'll be interested to see how quickly the referees can adapt because they have a hard job. And I know plenty of referees that do the job and it's very difficult. And bringing the new rules in where we've lost a year due to a pandemic, and this, we're going into the next Olympic Games and we've lost a year of that already. And so in essence, the referees and the athletes and the coaches, everybody involved has lost a year to learn how to perform or do their job within those new set of rules. It forces pressure on everybody involved for them to get the rules right, to deliver them consistently right in a very short period of time, and then the athletes and coaches to be able to follow. The coach's job now to be able to follow what's going on in the game with regard to who scored what in the first round and who's conceded how many Gamjams in the first round, and did we score a spin, did that spin score, and keep track of that when you're going into that last round, it's going to be, you've got far more to remember. And on top of that, I think what we need to think about as well is how the sport comes across to the spectators. Now, within the system of the rounds, I think that's going to have a big impact, because if you get the top athletes with the right mindsets, they're going to go to win from the start. They're going to go to win every round from the start. That's what they're going to do. I don't think there'll be any playing it safe. However they do that, whichever their strategy is, whether they play a defensive strategy aggressively or whether they're just outright aggressors in the game, they will go to win from the start. But the scoreboards and how the spectators can follow the game is one concern of mine, because if the coach is having trouble to remember who's conceded how many gamjams over the first 2 rounds, or who's accumulated a certain amount of points over the first 2 rounds, how are the spectators going to do that? So we need to be clear, or it needs to be clear for spectators to be able to follow what's going on, for the media to be able to follow what's going on, so that they can commentate on it and follow what's going on. And we've run the system a couple of times in-house in Colorado. And there are opportunities to promote it in such a way where you're going into the last round and blue needs to win by 7 points, or blue needs to win by 4 points, regardless what the score is. And if it's commentated on in that way and promoted in that way, it will add excitement to it, as opposed to them just going out and going, blue needs to win this round because the first one was tied and red's won. So if everybody can follow the scoreboard correctly, we can add more excitement to the game. But we need to work out how the scoreboards are going to be easy to read for spectators.
That's one of the things that it's this new system will be more appealing, especially for the generation of millennials and the new generation. They know from computer games, from even our generation, from the video games, from the round system, so wins which round. And then, of course, there still needs to be the tie break criteria. Those are always a little more complicated. I remember in London they were quite polemic, and of course these situations will arise. But I think, as you said, a good scoreboard, a good information visible out there will make it easier for the commentators to do their job. Regarding the refereeing, there's the problem from our sport. We are professionals. As coaches, this is what we do for a living. The players are professionals. Most of them live in residential programs, the residence programs, full-time programs. And then the referees are the ones that still have to pay their own airfares, buy their own uniforms, and do this mostly out of charity or friendship, because they're not really professional referees in our sport. But something that eventually will change as the sport will grow.
I hope so, because it's crazy, like you say, how we're trying to compete with the fully programmed high profile Olympic sports, with track and field and swimming and all those sports, and we've got referees that are doing it off their own back and of their own accord. Yeah, it's crazy. I've had the conversation with quite a few of the referees within WT, just about, even if we can't have a huge group of professional referees, a group of 30 professional referees on a salary where, they're split across continents and they travel to the competitions and they oversee courts, they oversee the rings. If they're not actually on there, they oversee to make sure that the rules are being applied correctly, and they're able to provide the feedback and do reviews with the referees. As a coach, we're very big on reviewing our athletes' performances. And I think, I'm not sure, I've not worked as a referee, but it definitely should be part and parcel of how we develop our referees. And we need a group of professional referees to be able to do that. The refereeing standard at the Grand Prix is good. It's very high. If you watch it across the board, it's very consistent. It's very
same as Olympics, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good at the Olympics. But it's taken 2 Olympic cycles to get there. Since 2012, it's taken 2 Olympic cycles to get to that point. And now they're going to be expected to do that again in a 3-year period, ready for Paris. And that's a crazy expectation to have on them, which is why, my only concern is, can we make these new rules stick within this short period of time, or should we wait? But yeah, I think it's a good point. We should have a group of professional referees, 100% within the sport. To make it fully professional, we need to have that.
CJ, I will ask you just a very short, because we don't have too much time, what's your opinion on the new rules?
It's a lot to take in as an athlete. I find myself, when we're applying the new rules and trainings and fights and stuff like that, I find myself going back to what I feel is natural and then catching myself and having to pull it back and be like, oh, that's going to be a gom jam soon. It's a lot more high pressured. In my opinion, I think that it's going to separate the athletes who try to steal matches and the athletes who are super aggressive. And it's going to favor the athletes that are super aggressive a lot more than it has been in the game. But I will say that I think that matches are going to be stolen a lot more often. If a kid comes from nowhere and just decides that they're going to throw down with one of the top dogs, you know what I mean? If they decided they're not going to be on their game that day or that specific fight, it could be over in 4 minutes. It's just 2 rounds, you know? So I think it's going to take a lot more gumption and a lot more focus from the first minute of the first round. You can't waste any time. You can't have a wasted round, because then you're in this hole where you have to dig yourself out in the second round and then dig yourself out again for the third round. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Thanks, TJ. Finishing up, Gareth, this is probably a question that many of our listeners have, especially as the coaches. What do you do differently that no one else is doing in our sport?
I don't know, because I don't know what everyone else is doing in our sport. But we've got a set of values that we work to with the athletes. And I mentioned it before about the process that we go through with them and how we educate them. And we try to put a lot of pressure on them with regard to performance in training and then performance on the court. But we take a lot of pressure off them with regard to results. So we've got a very set way of doing things. I'm not sure if it's the same as everybody else or different to everybody else, but I'd love to be able to go into the entire detail of it all now, but we'd be here for days if I was to do that. But I would say, we've got a clear set of values, how we expect our athletes to train, how we expect our athletes to behave and act in and outside of training. We go through a constant review process within performances and just program reviews on a 3-monthly basis. And if the standards aren't being upheld, then we get to a point where we can't continue to invest my time or the little funding that we have in the United States. So we have to be very strict here. But yeah, try to put them under as much pressure, get them ready for pressure situations that are going to come out even more so now with the new rules, and take the pressure off them from results. Because although we want gold medals, of course we do. That's why we do it, yeah? We're all in it for gold medals, Olympic gold medals, world gold medals. There's only so many ways you can control whether you get an Olympic gold medal or a world gold medal or not. And focusing on the gold medal isn't one way of controlling whether you're going to get it or not. So we try to educate them in that way.
Well, that's a very interesting answer, and thank you for that. And thank you for inviting yourself a special episode about your program. Regarding your programs, there's something that you'd probably like to share with our listeners. It's your Taekwondo University program. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So if you'd like to find out more about maybe what it is that makes us different to other programs, we've launched a university program. It's got 5 tiers to it. And it's basically a mind map of the training methods that myself and Paul have created over the years of working at GB Taekwondo and at USA Taekwondo, the methods that we've created to try to stay ahead of the game or keep up with the game in some cases. And we've put it into easy to follow 5-tiered system, one being very basic at the start, going up to your 5, which gives detailed technical coaching points and tactical coaching points with regard to the method itself and where the method fits, how you use that training method and what it's for. It's very interesting. If you're looking for a way to either progress yourself or educate yourself, I would 100% say have a look at what we've put together and what it is. It's a very professional, put together piece of work, and it's got all up-to-date current training methods that we used to get Anastasia her gold medal at the Olympics, and that we're using to work with CJ and our other athletes that are pushing to go to Paris and win us medals in Paris. And alongside that, I feel it's a very good way for coaches to have something within the Taekwondo world that they can show to potential employers or potential sponsors that they've done some education within the sport. You know, you can go to university and get degrees in all different types of fields and get educated in different types of field. I mean, although this probably is not up there within that high acclaim or that high recognition of a PhD, it's a program that's got 5 tiers to it that's been put together by multiple Olympic gold medal winning coaches that have done it over 3 Olympic cycles. So there's got to be some value in that, and it's got to be a great string to have to your bow as a coach.
Can you tell us where we can find this program?
I believe if you go to the USA Taekwondo website, you'll be able to find a link to the university program there.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, CJ. It was a pleasure being here with you and with everyone who's listening. This was the Taekwondo Podcast. If you haven't already, listen to our other episodes that are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are releasing new episodes every Tuesday. Stay tuned, subscribe to our podcast, leave us a positive review, and share it with your friends. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Taekwondo Podcast, keeping the fans, coaches, and high-performance athletes up to date with the latest news and trends on Olympic Taekwondo. Your host, Coach César Valentim, has almost 20 years of experience with high-performance Taekwondo and has worked all around the world as a Taekwondo trainer. Peter Nessler has been teaching Taekwondo for more than 20 years, and he's currently one of the top referees in Europe. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at Taekwondo Podcast, on Facebook at Taekwondo Cast, and the website taekwondopodcast.com. See you next time.